Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to St Paul's Cathedral here in Sale. I'll now ask the Dean, Reverend Karen Terpstra, to welcome us.
Thanks, Ian. Welcome to all of you who are members of St John in one way or another. And we're here today to honour the commitment that you make through your voluntary service. And I welcome each and every one of you to this beautiful space. And it's something that it's good to get to know you all because I have become a chaplain for St John Ambulance, so I'm hoping I'll be able to get to know you more over the years to come. As we gather today, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Briackle and clan of the Gunakurnai people, and we pay our respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and any Indigenous people who are here with us today. And here at St Paul's, we've committed ourselves to working towards justice for our First Nations people and the objectives of the Statement of the Heart, the Voice Treaty Makarrata. Was there anything else you wanted me to say, Ian?
I think that will do for now.
Well, I'll do that. I'll hand back to Ian.
So this afternoon we have a number of presentations to make, and the first presentation I would like to make is to Cinnamon Cotterill. Cinnamon? Cinnamon has been made a member of the Order of St John, and if we were better organised, we'd have a little doodad. We're in the middle. The camera person wishes us in the middle. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you very much.
There's your certificate. The next presentations will be the National Emergency Medals. The National Emergency Medal was struck after the 2009 bushfires, and it's been presented a number of occasions since then for when there is a national emergency and members are serving for an extended period of time. The first person I wish to present it to is Anthony Rimmer. Congratulations. Well done.
And each of you turn and face this way because we are live streaming.
The next one is Dale Leckey. Thank you, Dale. Well done. And Karen Blucher. And the history buffs will know it was Blucher who saved the day for the Duke of Wellington at the Battle of Waterloo. Well done. And I'd like to call upon Cinnamon Cotterill again, please. It's the music. We're going to go away with a show bag full of stuff in it. Whoops. Yeah. I would now like to present some service awards, and we'll start with George Burns. So George Burns, England and St John moved very slowly. We have here a certificate for 37 years of service and 40 years of service. cockerel shirt, but it's getting a bit like it, isn't it?
That has got to be it.
Ah. Now then. So now we have to present some COVID bits. St John Ambulance provided gallant service during the COVID pandemic, providing support to Ambulance Victoria, and in respect of this, we have some things to present. Starting with Dale A. Congratulations, Dale. Well done. Veteran Styles. Caitlin's been out. Kathleen Simpson. Anthony Rowe. There you go. Thank you. And I guess who this is for.
Embarrassing that.
I told you who you should have been. Sorry? In this job, you get told what to do. The Dean tells me what to do. Jessica tells me what to do. Gordon, would you come and just say a few words, please? And then we'll have the presentation by Bruce. Pleasure in introducing Gordon Botwright, who is the CEO of St John Ambulance Victoria.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, you do get told what to do in this organisation. This is also impromptu, but certainly from my perspective, it is a joy to be able to be here with you, to share and celebrate the service, the things that you have been doing over a period of time, and to correctly say thank you for all that you have done. To each of you who've received awards, other than Cinnamon, who's received them all, from everybody that I represent, both the board, the chair, and our senior management within St John Victoria, congratulations, well done, and thank you for your service. We know as an organisation that there has been so much work done by our volunteers over an extended period of time, and the opportunity to be able to catch up and say thank you is really important. And so if we look at all of the things that we're involved, and we have seen the National Service Medals been offered in relation to the fires that we're involved in 2019-2020, it seems amazing to think that it's only just that far back. But we know that as we come into another summer season, we get ourselves prepared for service again. For those of you that have received long service awards, 37, 40 years, George, well done, and thank you for that incredible service. And for those of you that did the work and got involved in all that we did during the COVID period, and again, it seems just not so long ago, but it was incredibly important work. And when I sit down and talk with our Ambulance Victoria colleagues, I always remind them of the fact, first of all, they don't exist without us, having started them in the first place. And then secondly, when they're in desperate need, who do they call on? They call on St John. And in doing that, we're able to know that we have the reliability, the service, the support, and importantly, the know-how and care that you're able to provide. And so our service to Ambulance Victoria, but in many ways, the things that we did during COVID, were incredibly important to the state, whether that was in the early stages, going out and knocking on doors to ask people to go and get their COVID tests, setting up the urgent care facility within about 48 hours of being requested by the state government, the Department of Health, to set that up at the North Melbourne Towers that were shut down, or whether it was in fact coming alongside Ambulance Victoria and the work that they were doing. We should be incredibly proud as St John for all that we do and the things that we get involved in to support the people of Victoria. And this is just a small example of some of the things and some of our people who are so generous in their time and absolutely well-deserved in terms of your acknowledgement. Thank you. Dr. Nicholson, thank you for making sure that this afternoon happened, and it is absolutely appropriate that we've had the opportunity to catch up and say thank you for these great people. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, Ian. Thank you.
I'll now ask Bruce Caslake to come up. Bruce has travelled all the way from Portland, and he has a very interesting summary of St John, I think would be one way of describing it. Bruce is the lead ambassador for the Order of St John, and he will talk about this. I am but one of his humble diplomats. Well, I'm not sure about diplomat, but anyway, ambassador. There's a group of us, and we go around spruiking. Would that be the word?
I'd say putting in pride into our members.
Anyway, I will hand over to Bruce.
Just waiting for our PowerPoint to come up. Yeah, so my name's Bruce. I'm from Portland Division, so I'm still an active member. But our job, as Ian has said, is that we go around all divisions in the state. So I've done all the way up to Mildura, all around the country, Victoria, and I'm now starting into the Melbourne metropolitan area. But what we're about is that what most members don't understand or don't know about, and that's the Order of St John and how you all fit in, and also how the public can see what we do as well. So where are we? Next one. Thank you. So I'm going to go through a bit of ancient history, because most people don't understand that our how would you say, our ethics, our things that we do, the things that we wear, all this sort of stuff, our badge, actually comes all the way back nearly 900 years. So we originally started as a group of Benedictine monks, came from a place called Amalfi in Italy. They were sent there. They were asked to come there to set up a hospice, which is a miniature hospital or a boarding house or whatever, to look after the pilgrims going to Jerusalem to visit the Holy Sepulchre. Does everybody know what the Holy Sepulchre is? They should hear. Okay, well, if you don't, it's the place where Jesus was crucified and buried. Okay, so and it's in Jerusalem. So that's what they're, and right, yep. So I keep looking over here because I haven't got notes in front of me, it's all in my head. So that's what we did, and that was in about the year 1080 when we first set up this hospice. In the year about 1113, we were recognised by the Pope, and this is all about the Crusades in that sort of area too, so we're in there before the Crusades. We were in there, we were looking after everybody, these guys, so it wasn't just Christians, we looked after Muslims, we looked after people, the Jews, we looked after everybody. Because of that work that we were doing, we started to get a lot of gifts from all different countries and all the people we were looking after. So we gradually built and built and built. One thing that you have to remember is our cross. Where do you think it comes from? What's it called? Sorry? Wrong. Okay. That's a modern term. It's actually the Star of Amalfi. Okay? And it was brought there by the Benedictine monks who came from Amalfi. Okay? And if you have a look, and I've actually been there, I've seen all this firsthand, there's a church there called the Church of St Andrews. Now, if you realise, or if you know your sort of biblical history, St Andrews, when he was crucified, Jesus was on a cross like so, right? St Andrews was on a cross like so, that way. Now, if you start to look in those spaces, you start to get the Star of Amalfi. It's the inlays of those areas, and you get the 8 points. So that's where it came from. And if you go to the church, you can actually see how it changes from this to get the actual cross. So that's where it came from. And that's the picture of it there, the Star of Amalfi. So we've done that. We've gone through all the crusades. We're in Jerusalem about 200 years. We went down to Jerusalem. Where are we? I'll just make sure that we're ahead. Oh, you've got to remember too that we're actually ratified and made an official order in 1313 by Pope Paschal II. We became a Catholic order. Now this is not us, this is the Knights of St John or the Knights Hospitaller. Okay, next slide please. That's the actual church of St David or the Holy Sepulchre. That's the church that it's in. It's pretty old. And inside there is where Jesus was crucified and also where he was buried. Very interesting, they did some renovations of the tomb and they actually found in the walls of the tomb the original cave was in there. And they carbon dated it all and they proved that that's actually where it came from. So there's some sort of realism about what was in there. Next slide, please. That's the actual tomb, that's what it looks like. It's a very, very small hole right down the very bottom. It's only about that high. You go in one chamber, then you go into the next, and there's where he actually was laid. So that's what they're all fighting about. That's what all the Crusades were about, was about these sacred places. So you have to understand that to realise what all the Crusades were about. Right out, next one please. Right, so after that, the Hospitallers got thrown out of Jerusalem in 1187. They then went down to Acre. Now, Acre was the port for the Holy Land. So that's where everybody was coming in and out. They were there for a little while, then eventually they got thrown out of there as well. I'm not going to go into that because you can go on for hours and hours and hours about that sort of crusade history. But they were thrown out by a bloke by the name of Saladin, who was a head of the Muslims. Okay? And the main thing that it boils down to is that when the first crusade happened, all the Christians were united. 200 years later, they were not united. They were battling against each other, and Saladin came in and he united the Muslims. So that's what happened, and so it's the old story. If you're in good teamwork and everything is working together, it all goes fairly well. It's when you start mucking around and cutting each other down, it doesn't work. From there, we went to Cyprus, in Limassol, and that's the church or the castle of the Knights of St John. We were there for about 20 or 30 years. And the Knights of St John started to think, we're sick and tired of looking after different kings' problems. We want to rule in our own right. So they found a place called Rhodes in Greece. At the time, it was under Constantinople, but it was virtually just a pirate haven. So what the Knights of St John did over about 4 years, with the help of a pirate, they took it over. As I said, it took 4 years, but they finally took over Rhodes, and that became their home, and they governed it in their own right. So they were the masters of Rhodes. So they were there from 1309 to 1522, another 200 years thereabouts. Okay. Everywhere that the Knights of St John went, two things happened. Number one, they always looked after the sick, the poor and the injured. They always built a hospital to look after the people. The Knights were also encouraged and made to work in the hospital, looking after the poor, the sick and the injured. So our roots go back to that. Okay? Unlike the Templars, who were all about business, killing, all that sort of stuff. Mind you, we were doing the same thing, but we always had this hospital side. After they got thrown out of Rhodes, there was two big battles virtually. The first one they won, the second one they lost, and they had to move out. They were allowed to take all their weapons and things with them. They even had the old right hand of St John the Baptist. had it there. They took all their things with them, but they were lost. They didn't know where to go. They ended up going to Crete, then they went to Sicily, and then finally they went to a place called Viterbo in Rome, just about 40 kilometres north of Rome. They were there for about 7 years. In that time, they were talking to a lot of royalty around Europe, and one particular king, the King of Spain, King Charles V of Spain, said, "Look, I've got this little bit of land that you can have if you want, called Malta. Only one thing that I want you to do as well, I want you to also protect Tripoli, which is 200 miles south on the African coast." Now, why do you think, I'll answer the question because no one's going to ask, but why do you think King Charles was doing that? And the answer is really simple, that the Ottomans and the French were actually trying to combine at the time. Because in those days, the politics between Germany and Spain, they had this one family that were starting to take over all of Europe. And King Charles wanted someone like the Knights of St John, who were a fighting force and had one of the largest navies in their land, to start interrupting all that process. Okay? I understand all this at the moment because I'm studying it right now. So anyway, so they took over Rhodes. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, they took over Malta. Oh, she's coming. So we're still in the ancient order. This is the last bit of the ancient order. We're in Malta. They actually took it over. They started running it, doing exactly what they did on Rhodes. Not quite to the same point because they were under the influence of King Charles V, the Pope, and also the Viceroy of Sicily, who was he was sort of in charge. He was talking to the King of Spain. But something happened in here because they were doing all these activities. They were out pirating and they were getting into all the Muslim trade routes, and they were taking money out and all that sort of stuff. They were raiding them, and they built up they were such a pain in the side of the Muslims, and it's particularly in one point where they took a ship, and it belonged to the head eunuch of Saladin, of the guy in charge of the Ottomans. On board were several high officials, but also there were 80,000 ducats on there. Translates to $12 million in today on board. That was one of the points that said, right, I've had enough of this. We're going to get rid of these knights. They're too much of a pain. Okay? In 1565, they attacked Malta. The guy in charge at the time at this point was Valletta, okay, which is what the town or the capital of Valletta is named after. The fighting went on for 6 months or so, but in the end, the Knights won. They could not beat them. This is a turning point in history, because what was going to happen is the guy in charge of the Ottoman Empire had already forces working up in Hungary and all that sort of stuff, and they were winning. He was going to have those forces come down to Italy on one side. He was going to use Malta as a staging point to come up from the south and attack Italy from both sides in a pincer movement. If the Knights hadn't have stopped that at that particular point in time, we'd all be speaking Muslim now. That's so they think. So they said. So it was a turning point. It's also the reason too that the sovereign military order, which is direct link to the Knights of St John, have a place on the United Nations without a country. The only one. And it's because of that battle in 1565 that occurred as a turning point in history. Very good. Next slide, please. Right, so that's enough of the... So after that, the Knights went on for another till about 1798, till they were taken over by Napoleon, and then they were thrown out of Malta, and then they spread all over Europe. There was no sort of direct place that they all went to. They went to Russia, they went to Hungary, they went to Rome, went all over the place. But the only direct link to them is the sovereign military order, but even that was after a certain amount of time. In England, though, we have a big connection too, and it's a place called, that there is the priory of... or what is today, hang on, where is it? Bit right in the front there, I haven't got a pointer, but there's a piece right in the front, just near those arch windows in the front of it, that's St John's Gate. That's still there today. But we used to have a big palace like that were owned by the knights. It was the Priory of St John. There was, what was it called, the poll tax in about the 13 or 1400s, I can't tell you exactly, went really bad. We were the Grand Master of the Knights of St John there, was the treasurer with the king, and there was this big revolution, okay? He ended up getting his head chopped off, and that area got dismantled. The only thing that's left, though, is that St John's Gate, which we own today, and that's where St John is the headquarters. By the way, those bricks, if you go to Hampton Palace or Hampton Court, that's where all the bricks come to build that building. It was from the Knights of St John, and the Knights of St John used to own the land also, where Hampton Court is. There's a whole heap of history there. It goes back to about 1140 in that area, so we're lucky to still have that. Next slide, please. I've got to keep going. What was happening back at the turn of the century, the 19th century, right on that turning point there? There was a few things happening. Number one, the Industrial Revolution was occurring. Do you know what all that is? That's when all industry started firing up around over in England, so all the woolen mills and coal and all that sort of stuff. Also the Crimean War. Heaps of casualties. They had to do something about it, and it's when the St John Ambulance, as we know today, started to come into being, and they got together and they formed the association. So the association was made first, and then the brigade. And what they were doing, of course, was teaching first aid in industry and saving lives. So that's where we first started from. That was in about in the 1800s, and then of course in when was it? 1887. Off the top of my head, that's when the association started. And in 1888, because of the work that we were doing, Queen Victoria decided to make us a royal order. Now, can I point out that in all the emergency services around, we're the only ones that have a royal order. None of the others have. Isn't that interesting? What I'm saying is, when you wear this uniform, when you see this badge, be proud. No one else has got that. And it's because of what we've done through history. Right, next slide. So Queen Victoria, as I said, in 14th of May 1888 made us a royal order. Our name, by the way, and you've just become a member, is the most venerable order of the Hospital of St John of Jerusalem. That's the full name. Most venerable. And was I talking to the minister here, saying that is like those two words, most venerable, is incredible. Venerable means to be, how would you say, to be truly thought of or whatever like that. Sorry? Highly honoured. There you go. So we've got those names in front of us as well. So we were made that. Next slide, please. I'm trying to wrap it up because Ian told me not to go too long. If you want to see, and of course in Australia, this year, 140 years old, we've been in Australia. It's again started off as the association, and then 12 months later in New South Wales, they started the brigade. So we started, and it was in Williamstown. The meeting that it held was in Melbourne at the Melbourne Town Hall, but the actual location was in Williamstown. And that's why I think it's a good idea that we actually have our museum. If you've never been to it, please make a beeline and go there and visit. All this history that I've been talking about is there. It's an amazing place. They just spent, what was it, $100,000, Gordon, on it, about, or a lot of money anyway, to do it all up to modern standards. Well worth having a look at. And that's in Williamstown on the Esplanade. Next slide, please. Yep. So these are all the things that we get involved in. I don't have to tell you about these things, so I'm not going to worry about that. But the other thing that you also have to realise is that we also look after, or we help out with an eye hospital in Jerusalem, directly from the order. Okay? It's really interesting. I don't know whether you understand what Jerusalem's like. I've been there. But it's a powder keg. Okay? You never know what's going to happen there. Okay? You've got Jewish, you've got Muslims, and you've got Christians. It's one of the only places, the eye hospital in Jerusalem, that I know that all three religions are working together. Isn't that amazing? So it can work. So we do that. So we directly fund that. We send nurses over there, about 4 a year, plus a doctor, and that comes from funds from Australia. If you have a look at the next slide. Now we talk about the order today. The person in charge of the order, the top of the order, the person who's in charge of us, of course, is underneath King Charles III. The Queen's cousin, so it's not King Charles, the Queen's cousin, the Duke of Gloucester, he's what they call our Grand Prior. And you can see how close he is to the royal family because he was right there during the funeral procession. So they're the people who are sort of at the royal side. Next one. Of course, St John is all over the world, okay? Virtually follow the Commonwealth. So right across all, so you're not just in an organisation here in Victoria, it's all over Australia and all around the world. Can you imagine all those other first aid services doing any of this? No, I don't think so. Right, next. The order today, the great officers or the Grand Council, these are the guys that are steering the ship for the organisation. Okay, so, and there's a little short guy over there. He's the Lord Prior. He's the third one in charge. He's the most loveliest man I've ever met. He's amazing. On our first trip we took overseas, he was on it. Very gentle. He's been in St John over 50 years, so he started off as a cadet. He is now third in charge. So underneath royalty comes our Lord Prior, which is a bloke by the name of Mark Compton. And of course that's with the Duke of Gloucester, and the other guy there, he's actually the CEO of Australia, or St John's National, and the other guy is a bishop, but he's the sub-prelate, which is in charge of the ecclesiastic side, which helps us with all that. Rightio, next one. Okay, there's our motto, for the faith and in the service of humanity. What if those other organisations have mottos like that? More like, what's in my pocket? So there you go. So pro fido utilitate hominem. So that's what all that's about. So that's our motto. Next slide, please. You wear your star, it tells us what we're about on the star. I have seen black crosses around. Whoever let that happening doesn't know the history. It should never be black. Always white for purity. So when any of you see those, and I have seen a few of them, I saw one the other night at Casey Division. It was on the wall. I thought, somebody doesn't know their history. But so there you go. So, and the 8 points, of course, with the royal beasts. It's really interesting. In Australia, we have the royal beasts on our sleeve. When you go over to England, guess what? They don't have them. I don't know what that's about. I just don't get it. We do, but they don't. And it's they're sort of their people. So the 4 crosses, of course, prudence, justice, temperance and fortitude. And the 8 points will also go through all that as well. It reminds you all the time about what St John's about on your sleeve. Next slide. As you can see, this is during the funeral service, and right in the centre is Mark Compton, who I was talking about, leading the procession of royal orders. Isn't that cool? And the same happened at the funeral as well, or at the coronation. So both times. It was, I don't know whether you watched the funeral, the video of the funeral, but the procession was about the start of all the orders, all the royal orders, and all of a sudden the American president came in through the door and he got held up while Mark Compton and all the royal orders come through, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. We had precedent over the President of the United States. I thought it was very appropriate too. Okay, next slide. Right, different grades of the order. Okay, you start off. You've just become a member of the order. Okay, so right down there, that one there. So silver. The next one up is an officer, becomes white. The next one up is a commander. Now what happens is that that one comes off and it goes around the neck, okay, or a separate one. And you also get a mantle as well with a St John emblem, sort of like Ian's, but not that big, about half the size, and it's all white. You get one of those when you go up to knight. Now there's 2 different types of knights, okay? Most of us, if we go in and become made a knight, you become a knight by the grace of St John. Okay? Ian, by the way, if you have a look at his beasts, are gold. So he is a knight of justice. That means he has some sort of heraldry or shield or connection to aristocratic somewhere. Okay? And proof. So he becomes a knight of justice. And the next one up from that is the bailiff or bailiff Grand Cross. Okay? There's only about 4 of those in Australia. There's only a couple of you guys too. There's not many. Okay? So that's a long way up. So they're the sort of things. What you have to do, everybody just doesn't automatically go into the order. Incorrect. You get your service medal for that. If you go an above and beyond, and you've been in St John for more than 7 years, then you could possibly be made a member of the order. Someone has to put you in, okay, or recommend you, and then each step of the order is a 7-year period, or should be, okay? But again, it can't be the same thing. It's got to be something else. Above and beyond. Be privileged. Okay? Right, so they're the different grades of the order and what they're all about. The next slide, please. What happened a while ago, a fair while ago, is that you get your service award, right? This one here. And you get your bars, 4 bars, and then 30 years you get a gold one, and then you go up another 3 bars, and eventually you got to 50. What was happening is that people were getting 60, 75 years and all this sort of stuff, and they were getting bits of paper because they'd run out of things. So they brought out the service medal or the gold service medal, and that's from 50 to 70. So once you get to 50 years, that one comes off, and then the 50 to 70 goes on, and by the way, the bars come every 5 years. Okay, so a 5-year in between, automatic. As long as you have to have done all the requirements each year. So you've got to be not financial, but you have to have done everything correctly. Right, next slide. Commendations. Okay, bronze commendation locally. So your local superintendent or manager, they can put you in for and it's just an event, something that happens that's above and beyond. Okay? Silver, state level. So something that you're at a state particular activity or something to do with the state. It could be the bushfires, and it's something that went above and beyond. Okay? Silver. Gold, national. Okay? So something above and beyond national. Okay? I have people come up and say, oh, can I give such and such and this? And I said, you better make sure that you're within the criteria, okay? And it's very strict. Right. Oh, and by the way, the gold commendation can only be presented by the Chancellor as well. Next slide. Once you become a member of the order, you're entitled to go to investitures, priory and chapter meetings, service, virtually church parade. Okay, you reaffirm what you said when you became a member of the order. So you do that every year if you want to at St Paul's. And you have these, what they call capitular presentations or processions, and that's where we get up on all the gear. Okay, you put the mantles on and they go down with the sword and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so you can go to all those sort of things. It's quite fun if you're into ceremonial stuff. Right, next one. The sword. That's the dubbing sword there for making people a knight. The difference is if you see a person made Sir such and such, they get the shoulders like that. We get 3 taps on the shoulder, so it's a little bit different. By the way, we don't carry the name Sir. Our recognition is only within St John. Okay, so please, yeah, if you get into those sort of things, it's only in St John. And of course we lay it on the beasts, the royal beast being present. Next one. Australia Priory, yep, order of service. So the main one, or the prior of Australia, is the Governor-General, okay? And then the Chancellor is next. He's the President of the Board for Australia. That's by the name of Cameron Oxley, lovely guy. Priory Secretary, and then the Deputy Priors are the state governors. So they're the ones that we usually see to get our presentations. Next slide. That's our shield. and of course the St John, the official St John organisation. I don't know why we don't use the order one more often. I've got to figure that out, because I think it should be shown more, because we are part of that. Okay, and the next one, for those people who aren't in St John, we do a lot of work in the community, and that's some of the stuff, some of the ideas. 800,000 primary school doing basic first aid. There you go, it's gone up. Those figures are old. Thanks, Gordon. I try and keep it up to date. I think the next ones I got off the Victorian website. What's the next one, please? There you go. That was off last year's, hopefully. This is Victorianised, I hope. And then what's next? I think we're nearly there. The eye hospital. I was talking about that. We own this property in Jerusalem, exactly where St John was, and we also have a hospital just on the outside of the old city of Jerusalem. And again, they're treating people with eye. It's an ophthalmic hospital. Everything is free, and we treat everybody and anybody. It doesn't matter who they are or what they belong to or what faith. They also have a van moving around Queensland as well, doing the same thing for the Indigenous people. So we do look after our own country as well, not just Jerusalem. Next one. So that's the sort of support that comes from all over Australia for the ophthalmic hospital. That's just recent, so I've got that off national just a few months ago. So we're in Australia, I think we did quite well, or in Victoria. Where was it? 25,000, that's not too bad. Okay. And what that's virtually doing is having support for 4 nurses and a doctor at the eye hospital. Those nurses, if you want to, if you contact headquarters as in national and talk to the hospitaller, you might even get a Guernsey to be sent over there. I saw a few Australian nurses over there when we were there. And I think that's it. There you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. That was the short version. He's actually rattled through it very quickly. It's fair to say that this particular slideshow came out a year ago, a bit more. And Bruce sends it to me, and I say, slide number 3, line 4, and then it goes to someone else, and they go, slide 16, line 5. So it's been edited. It's very much a living document. It has been, I think, didn't one of the poems get it or something? Yes, it went to Scotland. That's right. It went to Scotland. They were really chuffed to have it, and interestingly, the St John is spread all around the world. In the United Kingdom, there's St John for England, Wales, and the Channel Islands, and Scotland has its own priory, and Northern Ireland is a commandery, but in the Republic of Ireland, there's a separate priory. There's only the Irish can manage to do these things. But we are in fact one St John, and I certainly, when I was the commissioner and doing a lot of first aid, actually had the privilege of being in London for the Trooping of the Colour, which is for the Queen, then the Queen's birthday. And I went round a number of St John first aid stations in London for that parade, and it was completely at home. The people running those stations were just like our own Johnnies here. And in fact, when we had the Commonwealth Games in Victoria, that's the first iteration, not the one that got cancelled, we had visitors from Canada and the United Kingdom, I think, yes, and New Zealand. And they just blended in. So we really are one St John. And to be a member of the order is a privilege. For the those who don't know, it is actually a gazetted order, so we've made reference to that. It is a gazetted order, so your membership is gazetted in the Australian Gazette. So it's not, don't ever think of it as some sort of Mickey Mouse organisations. We're not. And we have a very ancient and honourable history. On that cheerful note, I'll ask Karen to say sort of a few words.
At our chaplain's induction earlier this year, we heard a little bit about some of the history of the order, but Bruce has brought a real passion, and we were talking earlier, and that really came through, the passion that he has. And I think that that's something that those of us who are involved with St John in whatever capacity can take forward in what we do. And what we do is a form of ministry, you know, carrying on from that ancient tradition. And so in that sphere, let me pray for all of the members of the order and for those who work for St John in many capacities. And whether you are a person of faith or not, I invite you to join your intention to this prayer. God, we hold to you this ancient order of St John. We thank you for the example of so many people who have given their lives to the service of others in selfless ways. And we thank you for the example of the people here today who have been recognised. May we be your hands and feet. May we carry forward that heart to care for others and go above and beyond the call of duty, not for the sake of reward, but for the reward itself of seeing lives transformed. And we do this in the name of Jesus. Amen. So, do you want me to invite to morning, afternoon tea, or are you going to do that? You do that.
Hopefully, if everything's worked out, we should have afternoon tea. Oh, photos, yes. We need a group photos. Yes.
All those that receive it just without anyone else, just going to stand here at the front for the live stream purpose, and then I'm turning that off and I'm taking photos. Because otherwise we get my big statement of the question.
Well, recipients, that includes you.
Off you go.
Go on, Cinnamon.
Bring one thing that you've got, it's not all of them. Bring one thing.
You're a show bag.
Me again. I'm happy to get back.
This way? Yep.
Yeah, get in.